Hey, what's going on? Today we're going to be exploring AAVE. Now, this is the biggest lending and borrowing platform that's out there. If you're wanting to learn more about lending and borrowing as a strategy, make sure you go through the DeFi quests. And I believe it is quest 5 that's going to fully detail out this entire platform, as well as different strategies that you can use, whether you're bullish or you're bearish. Now, there are many different things that we can do, but I just want to walk through very specifically about AAVE here. Now, AAVE is the biggest lending and borrowing platform out there, and right now I believe it's actually sitting at its all-time high at $33.26 billion of TVL locked inside of the AAVE platform. And like I said, it's the biggest lending and borrowing platform that's out there, and it allows us to supply our assets and potentially borrow against them, which I'll talk about here in a second. So what's great about AAVE is that it allows us to generate a yield on single asset exposure tokens that we're holding. And so for me, I'm lending wrapped Bitcoin, but you can also lend ETH or USDC or wrapped ETH or Link or ARB or AAVE or DAI. There's a lot of different options for you to lend or supply your assets on this platform and generate a yield. Now, this yield, understand, is not a fixed rate. This is completely variable, and it really depends on the utilization rate of the borrow, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But just understand that the rewards you're earning are going to be fluctuating based on the utilization rate. So it's not fixed. Just remember that, okay? What are other things I can do? So, about the collateral here. So you can see it says can be collateral, which shows us that we can supply the asset, use it as collateral, and actually borrow against it. And which is great because in a bullish scenario like this, is I can lend my Bitcoin, maintain full exposure of that Bitcoin, use it as collateral, borrow against it, and then take this borrowed stablecoin. So now I have my full Bitcoin exposure, and I have now $3,000 of USDC in my wallet because I just borrowed it, and now I can go take that USDC elsewhere and generate a yield or do something else with it. And so I like this setup for a bullish strategy because it allows me to keep main exposure to my supplied asset. I get to borrow against it. So now this borrowed capital I can now deploy. And so now I increase my crypto exposure, but understand whatever you borrow has to be paid back. Now, it's not like a traditional loan where you have to pay back installments at certain periods of the month. Like if you ever had like a car note or a mortgage or a personal loan where they have payments that you have to pay on a monthly basis. It's not like that. The way it works is that this APY right here, this 5.63, which is also variable, not fixed rate, where in other places like a mortgage or a car note, that is going to be a fixed rate. This is not fixed. It's going to be variable based on the utilization rate. But basically what you'll notice is that this value is just going to steadily increase over time. And so if I come back, I might see, if I come back tomorrow, I might see this at $3,056. And then I come back a few days later, it might be $3,057. And so this debt or this loan that I have here is just going to be steadily increasing over time based on this interest rate here. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of the collateral and the borrowed assets. Now in AAVE specifically, they have a thing called the health factor, and this is just a snapshot of the health of this position. So if I were to click on risk details, I can actually see the risk factor here at 1.73. Now that health factor 1.73 for me is a good indication of the health, because I know that if this goes down from 1.73 down to 1, now I'm at risk of liquidation. Where for me, actually, the better value that I want to look at is the current LTV. Now, the LTV is that loan to value ratio. And if this is all brand new to you, make sure you go through the DeFi quests all about lending and borrowing. That's going to detail out everything you need to know. But if you've already gone through it and you're aware of this, I like this. So I like the health factor, but I also want to see, hey, what's that LTV? And so right now I'm sitting at just above 45%, which for me is the top of my personal threshold. And so for me, what I'm going to be doing is I'm either going to be repaying this as I go, which means pay down the loan from $3,055 and reduce that. That will drop the LTV. Or I can increase my supply. I can add more Bitcoin to my supply, which will also lower my LTV. Understand that this max LTV that I'm allowed to have is 73%, so I can only borrow up to 73%. And if it reaches 78% in terms of my LTV, now I'm at risk of liquidation, and I do not want to be liquidated, because what that will do is it will sell my Bitcoin and convert it to USDC and then close out this liability. And so I do not want to lose exposure to my Bitcoin here to pay back this loan. So for me, I want to make sure that I'm keeping this at a healthy level where my LTV is significantly below that liquidation threshold. So 45% for me is my personal threshold to keep it under. Okay, other things that I can do here. I can withdraw. So if I wanted to withdraw some of my Bitcoin, I can click withdraw here, and I can now withdraw a percentage of my Bitcoin. Withdraw and switch is a little bit different. So I can withdraw Bitcoin, and then it would automatically swap it into something else. So if I wanted to withdraw Bitcoin and then switch it into ETH, I can do that right here. So a lot of different features that AAVE is putting out there that allows you to manage your positions here. Let me think, is there anything else? I guess the only other thing here is the swap feature. So if I click swap, this will be to basically change my borrowed asset into something else. So if I'm borrowing USDC at 3,055 here, if I wanted to switch this to ETH, I can do that. And basically now I would be having ETH as my debt asset. And so if I wanted to pay back an asset to pay down the loan, I would need to pay back ETH here. So something to think about. I've never done anything like that. For me, I just keep it real simple where I have my lent asset here, my supplied asset, my borrowed asset here. And then you could always do it in reverse if you're more bearish. So if you're more bearish, you would want to put USDC as the collateral asset and then borrow whatever you're bearish on. So again, not to go too deep in the strategy, I'm just showing you the platform and what is possible. So, one thing I didn't mention are the different chains. So if you click on the drop down menu here, you can see all the different chains that are available. You got ETH mainnet, you got Base, you got Avalanche, Optimism, Polygon, BNB chain. There's a lot of different chains that you can operate on. And like I said, it is the biggest lending and borrowing platform at $33.2 billion. Hey, what's up? So it's been a few days since I recorded that previous video, and I wanted to actually show you a few other things. Number one is that the debt value has increased since I recorded that video. You can see that in the other part of the video, I owed 3,055 USDC, but as days progress, this debt is growing in value at this variable rate. You can actually notice that the APY in the previous part of the video was a little bit higher. And so now today it's a little bit lower. And that's because the utilization rate on this specific asset is down. And so with less USDC being borrowed on the platform, the lower the APY. So the APY is lowered a little bit, but the debt value continues to grow at this rate. And so that's just one thing I wanted to highlight. The second thing that I forgot to mention, and I need to mention it, is that on AAVE specifically, we can actually repay the loan or pay down the debt using the collateral. This is a very unique function for AAVE. I wish other lending and borrowing platforms allowed us to do this, and if I click repay, you can actually see that if I click collateral, that I can use my collateral to repay the debt. And so if I were to press max, you can notice here that I would be basically selling 0.02653 Bitcoin or my collateral, some of my collateral, to actually pay down or pay off that debt. If I only wanted to pay a little bit, let's say I wanted to only pay back 500 USDC, you'll notice that I'm going to basically withdraw the wrapped Bitcoin, sell it, convert it into USDC, and then pay down the loan, all with one click of the button. And by doing that, you can notice that my health factor at 1.68 will actually increase, meaning it'll become a healthier position at 1.86 because I'm starting to pay down that loan. So that's just something to be aware of, is that AAVE has that functionality for us to pay down or pay off the loan using our collateral. But I can always use the wallet bounce as well. So if I externally have USDC that I'm collecting from a liquidity pool position or for something else, I can just connect my wallet, go to my wallet balance, click max, or put however much I want to pay down, click repay USDC, and you'll notice that the health factor will increase because my position will be healthier as my loan is paid down. So hopefully all this makes sense. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them down below, but hopefully this gives you a nice rounded view of this platform AAVE that we're constantly looking at and using as DeFi investors. Hopefully this makes sense, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.